Will Hardy was pretty furious after the game last night. Did he have every right to be? Next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. Thank you for making Locked on the #1 sports podcast network. We are free and available on all podcasting apps. And to the everydayers, you're the greatest. All right, today's show, we will look at why I don't think Portland's going to work at all. We're going to look at some things I actually thought were really, really good in this game by the Utah Jazz in a loss to the Portland Trailblazers. We are going to look at whether or not the mysterious rim numbers of the Utah Jazz might actually be accurate, or whether the rim defense of the Utah Jazz is actually that good. This road trip is going to solve my mystery on whether it's scorekeeper or defense. And then, but we're going to start, and I might actually get to the Will Hardy sound on Keonte George that I've promised you for 2 days in a row. Might, if I remember. But we're going to start with Will Hardy's postgame press conference. Will seemed almost furious, actually. He just came out and said that for 3 quarters, no one played defense and that they straight line drove him the whole game. And that if you want to be on this team and play, you're going to have to be professional and realize that what you did one game does not matter what you did the next, and that you will have to guard. And you cannot just so he basically came after it and then gave huge praise to Elijah Harkless and Cody Williams, who both came in the fourth quarter of last night's game and kind of changed the tempo and the pattern of the game and helped out defensively. So Ron Boone was talking about this all night. If you were listening to our radio broadcast, which you can now get on the multicast feature, though it does not seem as though Amazon Fire is an option, I will see what I can find out for you on that. But on multicast, you can, on Jazz Plus, you can now toggle it over to the radio and listen to Ron. You can get us as well on the Jazz app. So there's a lot of places. And KSL Sports Radio. Sports Zone. All right. And Ron was talking about all night. Portland doesn't run anything. So Portland brings the ball up the floor super fast, fastest across half court in the league. We talked about this yesterday. Fastest in their first action because they don't run any actions. The way to be fastest in your first action is to not run an action and just drive. This is a little bit of what Memphis tried to do last year. And Denny Advida just killed the Jazz last night. Killed them. Single-handedly. Killed them. Denny Advida drove 17 times last night and averaged 1.25 points per drive. That is a ridiculous number. His 19 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists do not tell the story on how much he kind of torched the Jazz. Drew Holiday had 27. That'll be the headliner, but Advida is the one who really got the Jazz here. The Blazers drove 52 times last night, and they had 1.17 point per drive. That's a half-court possession where your general offense is a little below a point of possession, and they're at 1.17. They had 23 isolations last night for 1.31. 1.31 points per isolation last night. That's Will Hardy's right. That means you're not guarding. I went back through and watched all of the drives, and literally they space the floor. Avida goes and gets the guy he wants, and then comes after you. It's really not tricky. Like, it's stunningly simplistic in a game that sometimes can get pretty complicated. It's pretty like fundamentally basic, and the Jazz didn't guard it well. I'm sorry, did I say 23 isolations? 1 point on the direct isolations, 1.3 points, and on the pure chances, 1.04. Yeah, it's a lot. Like the isolations, the Jazz did not defend the isolations well last night. They're in the drive. The drives and isolations have a lot of the same, by the way, just to make sure you understand that. The biggest culprit was Lauri. On 12 drives, he allowed 1.09, and Walker on 5 drives allowed 1.2, and Nurkic on 4 drives allowed 1.2. And Kyle Filipowski last year was one of the worst isolation defenders in the NBA. And so the concern on this is, as simplistic as this is, and as big as the Jazz are defensively, and what they're trying to cover up, is that this is what teams are going to do. Last year, out of 190 guys who defended isolations, Kyle ranked 168th. Markkanen ranked 171st. Walker actually ranked 38th. So that this may be now, let's keep an eye on this, what teams do. Like, okay, if you're going to play Filipowski, Markkanen, and Kessler, we're going to bring them into space, and we're just going to attack them. Keonte had a pretty good defensive night, actually, against the drive, which is great, because Keonte's not been super. In 7 drives against Keonte was 0.71 points. So really did that. And Hendricks showed some signs defensively last night. Got beat badly on one, defended 1 or 2 well. And they did not go after Kyle last night. I went back and watched the drives by Avdija. At least Avdija didn't. Avdija went after Lauri, got Walker in some space, got Kyle and Walker confused on an interchange. But his drives against Keonte were good. And Elijah Harkless came in the good game and stood him up twice, forced him to turn over once and ripped him once. I don't like, and I'll get into this, I don't think Portland's style of play is the answer. And there's this huge rage in the NBA right now for everyone guarding the backcourt. I'm going to be a little old schooly and realize that think that there's a reason why people didn't used to do it, and I'll get into that. But I do wonder on Elijah Harkless whether there is a specialty role on him. Like, we play Charlotte coming up here, and LaMelo Ball is their snake, the head of their snake. Do you just bring Elijah Harkless in for 5 or 6 minutes just to bother the crap out of LaMelo Ball and have him just follow him everywhere, hassle him, bother him, break his rhythm? Is there some value to that? He and Cody came in last night, played well. Cody hit a 3, had a nice fast break, and also played some defense. Jeremy Grant tried to drive on Cody a few times, got nowhere. In the drive game, it was Avdija who buried the Jazz, and he's become pretty darn good. I think, let's see, I'm looking to see what these, I scribble all these notes. Oh, Avdija had 7 isolations last night. Pure isolations, 1.4 points per isolation for Avdija. So Will was right. He just went and got guys, got them in space, and went after them. So this is going to be interesting. Now, as much as Will is right, of course, he's the head coach, he kind of knows what he's talking about. I actually thought there were a lot of really good things in that performance from the Utah Jazz last night. It takes a little digging into the numbers and understanding what Portland does to look at things, but I generally left that game more kind of where I've been this whole time, intrigued and excited about the possibilities and what this season has ahead of us. Now, I will be honest on one note on that before I get too excited. Going down 20 is bad. I've charted this for years and years and years. The first thing I watch every year is what teams are going down 20. We're down 22 at one point. And by the end of the year, the teams that trailed the fewest amount of games by 20 are the best. I mean, it's intuitive, but it's a really good indicator early in the year of like who's real and who's not. World champion Boston Celtics trailed by 20 the fewest times of anyone in the NBA 5 times that year. The world champion Oklahoma City Thunder, hurts my heart to say that, trailed by fewer times than anyone else in the NBA last year, 6 times. You kind of can run this thing for a while. The team that the surprise Miami Heat that nobody expected to go to the NBA Finals trailed by 20, the second fewest times of anyone. The sad one is the 2021 Utah Jazz trailed by 20 fewer than any team other than the Phoenix Suns that year. Thought we really had it. The 2020 Utah Jazz trailed by 20 less than any team in all of the NBA. Thought we really had it. Right now, Phoenix, by the way, and Brooklyn have trailed by 20 4 times in 5 games or 4 games. That's our first. Only 17 teams have trailed by 20. But keep an eye on it. Trailing by 20 is bad. The clip that, by the way, if you want to note on this, the teams that you should be a little concerned about right now is the Detroit Pistons, the LA Clippers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves have trailed by 20 in 2 games. It's a lot early. I watch these things. You can think I'm weird, but I watch these things. I have some real positives on last night's performance by the Utah Jazz, and they're basic. You got to understand who they played, who's different, and plays a weird style. One I don't buy in. Next on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Peloton. I was on it yesterday, right before the game, but now you have the Peloton Cross Trainer Tread Plus. They're shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus. It's powered by Peloton IQ. It's the most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance, endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests right weights and correct form, making every rep safer and smarter. The swivel screen is a game changer, and you can go from running on the tread to strength training without missing a beat. And personalized class recommendations keep you engaged, and you get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy each day. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push forward, and explore the new Peloton Cross Training Thread Plus at Peloton.com. That's ONE, Peloton.com. All right, the Jazz lost last night. They were down 20, and they didn't guard isolations or straight line drives, and Denny Alvarez went straight line into the lane all the time, particularly to his right hand, which was the scouting report, which had Will Hardy furious. After Will Hardy was done furious, if I was in a coaching meeting with Will Hardy this morning, here are some of the things that I would point out. We were the worst turnover team in the NBA last year by a lot. Portland comes in forcing the most amount of turnovers of anyone in the NBA. Okay, so a year ago, and I'm looking for growth and improvement for a year ago. Will Hardy might be looking for more than that, but let's just be clear of what I'm looking for. I want to have a season with this level of pizzazz and energy and excitement and be in these games and play with this level of intensity and have really a lot of fun. So last year, the Utah Jazz turned the ball over at an alarmingly high rate, the highest of any team in the NBA. We also forced the least amount of turnovers in a game that became possession-based. It was a really bad deal. And so we turned it over 17% of possessions last year. And the next closest was Portland at 15.9, and the league average was 14%. So it was bad. And last night was bad because we turned it over 21% of the time. But if you look a little deeper, it's the second lowest turnover rate this year against the Portland Trailblazers. 5 games. But last year we were the worst every single time. Portland is forcing opponents into 22% of their opposing possessions into turnovers. And we were at 20.6. Okay, so I don't know that Portland can sustain 22 because the system's not going to work. I'll explain why in a minute. It's kind of like when Jim Boylan tried this with Chicago. But let's just take it on the surface of the sample size we have, which is 5 games. The Lakers turned it over 25%. The Clippers turned it over 24%. The Warriors turned it over 23%. We only turned it over 20%. I think that's a really good sign. Because last year, I promise, we would have had the most turnovers against them. Okay. The offensive rating last night by the Utah Jazz, I believe, was a 125. We actually handled the pressure and had the best offensive game of anyone against Portland all year. Okay. We also had a free throw rate last night of 49.9, which was disgusting because we had to watch it. Free throws are fascist. We just call everything fascist these days. The 125 offensive rating by the Jazz last night is Minnesota had a 116. The Clippers had a 112. Lakers had a 101. Golden State had a 107. The Jazz were completely unfazed by Portland's pressure defense and commitment to defense. And Portland's supposed to believes they're going to be a top 5 defensive team in the NBA, and that's what's going to carry them this year. So that's terrific. We had a really good offensive game against them. And while we did turn it over 21% of the times, it's the second fewest of anyone against them this year. And I've always felt this way about turnovers. Give me the whole picture. But the Jazz 125 offensive rating last night, they win that game. They'll win that game almost every time. The unfortunate thing is that they didn't defend. So Will Hardy was right to be furious. But these are some positives. The next one is that the Jazz last year were far and away the worst transition defense in the NBA. Oh my gosh. Like, it wasn't close. The Jazz allowed more transition than anyone in the NBA last year by a mile. Like, we didn't kid around last year. When we were bad at things, we just were really bad at them. So if you look at last year, transition defense and the amount of times that we had people in transition, and I'm going to use two different scales here for a minute, just so that we have someone, just so you understand when you hear two different numbers. But the Jazz allowed teams in transition 23% of the time last year. The next closest was 21, and the league average was 18%. Okay, so like almost 4 or 5 more times than anyone else in a game. These numbers are not counted the same way. So ignore those sets of numbers. 2 different systems, count the numbers differently. But Portland last night, who is in transition 25% of the time and leads the NBA in transition possessions, was in transition a lot last night, but less than they were against the Clippers, about the exact same they were against the Warriors, a little more than they were against the Lakers, and Minnesota was able to keep them in the first game of the year, keep them away from running. Again, not the highest of standards I'm setting here, but a year ago, I promise we would have been the worst. So these are really good. Our half-court offense, or maybe it was theirs. Let me check. I write these notes down so fast. Their half-court offense last night, which is not particularly good, it's middle of the pack, 23rd in the league, was in the 50th percentile for half-court offenses of the 96.6. So we did overall, while we didn't dare the drives, we didn't do these, we weren't horrific. This is honestly matters because going down 20 is bad. You've got to stay in games or else you don't get a lot out of it. Okay, one thing that's been going on here this year is Will Hardy has said, we are not going to allow shots at the rim. That is a defensive mantra. We'll give up extra threes. We will not give up shots at the rim. Last night, Portland took 37% of their shots as threes, and they buried a bunch of them. Some not very good shooters hit some shots. It was unfortunate. I am a little suspect on some of these numbers because I wonder whether or not there's a possibility that our arena is counting rim shots differently than some other teams. And that's just a reality of the league. It just kind of, I talked about this a little bit recently. Golden State's notorious for not counting shots at the rim. And they're just being much more nothing doing anything wrong. It's humans, and they're just more stringent about it than other teams of what they define as a rim shot. But, so we'll see. But, so one of two things on this. So let's go with it. Portland coming in took the third most amount of shots at the rim. They'd taken 41%, 40%, 36%, and 45% of their shots at the rim to start the year. Everything in the 40s. They shot, according to the numbers last night, again, this could be scorekeeper influenced, the Jazz held Portland taking 21% of their shots at the rim last night. So half. If this is not scorekeeper influence, we're about to find out on the road whether these numbers hold. That's great. The other side of it, by the way, that's not great is we are not taking any shots at the rim at all. This also could be scorekeeper influence, so we don't need to worry about it yet. But we're not taking any shots at the rim at all. One reason to believe this could be real and not scorekeeper influenced is because our numbers in Sacramento were pretty much the exact same as what our numbers in the 3 games in Salt Lake have been. In which case, Will Hardy's defense is doing an incredible job at taking away the rim. The league average is 30% of all shots go to the rim. And it's kind of like accepted that 30% of shots will be at the rim. Defenses have got good enough. You probably can't get higher than that. And it's pretty hard to get it lower. Well, so far this year, Jazz opponents have shot 14%, 20%, 19%, and 21% of their shots at the rim. So that's really good. The not as good thing is that we're taking equally as few shots at the rim. We'll see whether or not that's true. And then the final one that's really, really good is the Jazz have, these numbers are crazy. In the last 2 games, the Jazz have gotten 49% of their misses as offensive rebounds, and they've gotten 41% of their misses as offensive rebounds in the last 2 games. I mean, Houston literally lived last year by dominating the glass at such a high rate that their offense became good. The Jazz offense, the last 2 games, has been really good, over 120, because they're grabbing so many of their misses that they then go back and score. I don't think 40 percentile is sustainable, but it could be enough that you have to start altering your game plan if you're the other team the way Houston did last year. We'll find out. When the Jazz said, we'll ask Phoenix, because Jordan, first question I'm asking Jordan out is, the Jazz got 49% of their offensive rebounds, and how do you change what you're doing to that? All right. Portland plays this interesting high-pressure system. It's not going to work. Next on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by Rippling. Rippling is, if you're a business owner and you got SaaS because you promised to make you work easier, now your company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow your team down, just like everyone else, because they simply didn't work together. So that's not SaaS, that's SAD, software as a disservice. And that's why you need Rippling. Rippling is unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. And they've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. So everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source of truth for their people, data, and everything they touch. And right now, you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. That's RIPPLING.com/LockedOnNBA. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNBA. robinhood.com/LockedOnNBA for 6 months free. Today's show is also brought to you by Robinhood. Your ambition just met its match with Robinhood. You played it for the win, not just on game day, every day, locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again, channeling that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto, all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood's Legends advanced tools. Or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. The numbers are astronomical. They could not be so more appreciative. October is going to be our largest month ever. I think we might cross 50 million listens and views. It's crazy. Love it. Thank you. Super fun. All right. There is a trend going on in the NBA. If you follow me on Twitter at DLock09, I was all over this yesterday. I went geeky yesterday for the first time in the NBA season, got all fired up about it. Loved it. It was super fun. Like dug in, did all my usual stuff, and then started tweeting endlessly. So here's the note. There's a trend in the NBA of teams picking up full court. 5 years ago, 9% of all possessions had someone pick someone up in the backcourt. And this year it's doubled to 18%. So it's gone from 9 to 10 to 12 to 14 to 18. Like it's just progressed. Some of the theories are that the league's allowing more contact, or John Hollinger's theory is that the league's allowing more contact. And so therefore teams are picking up more full court because they're allowed to put more pressure on the ball. And also the analytics show if you get later in a shot clock, you don't do as well. So the league average is 18%. Last year, the high was 27.8% between Brooklyn and Portland. Okay. And Brooklyn and Portland did this last year. And then Portland had a really good end of the year defensively. And everyone's decided this is like the in thing. So let me be the one who's going to go the other way on this. First of all, I generally believe that if no one's done something in the NBA for the last 50 years, there's actually a reason it wasn't because everyone's an idiot. Let me also point out that Brooklyn had the 23rd ranked defense in the NBA and Portland had the 17th. Okay. Portland also had the 24th ranked free throw rate last year, and Brooklyn had the 28th ranked free throw rank last year. And let me remind you that putting someone on the free throw line is still the worst thing you can do defensively every single possession. Now, 2 of the 3 best defenses fouled a lot last year. Or two of the top 2, Oklahoma City and Orlando, foul a lot. So you can, if you force a ton of turnovers, okay, like Oklahoma City and Orlando, you can get away with fouling a lot. And Brooklyn and Portland forced some turnovers. They were in top 10 in forcing turnovers, but they then also didn't do some other things. So first of all, let's just say that the track record is not that last year that worked that well. So the high last year was Brooklyn and Portland at 28%, and Portland is over 40%. They're picking up in the backcourt virtually every possession at that point because you can't. Their average pickup point by Portland is 28 feet. Or it's the 45 feet is now the average pickup distance. And now I think Portland's at 57 feet. It's ridiculous. Okay. It just spreads out the floor too much. Like, it's great. You're in the guy. You're bothering him. You're causing hassle. You work him. The Jazz offensive rating was a 120 last night. It didn't work. It may have worked against the Clippers early in the year. We'll see. It looks as though a lot of things might work against the Clippers. But if I'm just being honest about it, you get the ball out of your primary, yes, and you can get the ball out of the primary ball handler's hands. Okay, so the reasons it feels good is because it looks like you're initiating things. 2, it looks like you're putting pressure on the ball because you're probably forcing a few more turnovers, and because of the fact that you're getting the ball out of the primary ball handler's hands. Like we had Nurkic and Kessler try to bring the ball up the floor. Okay. So those are all the reasons it feels good. The problem is if they get off the ball and you start to move it in a day and age where all the players are this skilled, what ends up happening is that they move the basketball to the next guy. And the next guy can handle, and the next guy can handle, and they can play actions. And they're just going to give up way too many easy baskets and be scrambling defensively too much of every possession. Maybe the Jazz were a fluke last night and that the Jazz handled it better than anyone else. Right now, Portland is 9th in the league defensively. Let's see. They're forcing turnovers at a rate that's 22%. It would be historically one of the best ever in the history of the NBA. The last team that forced turnovers at this rate was Jim Boylan and the Chicago Bulls. And they went after it. I'd have to go back and try to figure out what year that is. And then when I went and did the math on it, for all the turnovers that they gained over a course of a game, while they were forcing 1 million turnovers a game, they were at 18%, much more than anyone else. They were 30th in foul rate, and they were 27th in defending shots because it just was too much. You're spreading the floor, you're overextending, you don't have a shield. It's unfortunate that like new creative ideas may or may not work, but in this case with Jim Boylan, it was a bad idea. The math goes the wrong way. And I'm here to tell you that the math is going to go the wrong way on Portland. I know everyone loves this. Everyone thinks it's all cute. Everyone's talking about it, including me. And I found myself in the broadcast feeling like you had to talk about it because all this stuff was happening. But the fact of the matter is, 22% is probably not sustainable. The year Chicago had the highest rating, they were at 18%. So this is going to slide. I don't think you can force 22% of opposing. If you do, that's interesting. You're starting to get to a number that's there. But in the 1920 season, Portland did this, and they were the 12th best defensive team in the league, right? So it turned out that they turned out to be the 12th best defensive team in the league. That's good. Like in that sense, it kind of worked, but it has so many things that went against it. And by the way, the next year, they fired Jim Boylan. They went to 27th in the league in turnovers, and they were 12th in the league defensively. Exact same. So we'll see, but I'm not buying. That's my point. That is Locked on Jazz today, but now let me see if I can actually get you Will Hardy's comments about Keonte George. I almost forgot again. I just want to be totally honest. That I promised the other day on the show for you.
You know, I think you should ask Keonte that also, but from where I sit, I just see somebody who is very comfortable with his surroundings. I think he's very comfortable with everybody in our organization. You know, everybody sees kind of the interaction between the players and then the players and me during the games, but what you don't see is the way that the guys interact with all of the support staff, all of the medical staff. I think the way that Keonte carries himself now just shows me that he has a lot of trust in all the people here. He stayed in Utah all summer. He just seems like somebody who's really settled in, and he's sort of given himself to the group. And I think that's hard for anybody to do. I mean, it's hard for me to do. You know, you have to really trust all the people around you, and I think he's gained so much respect from all of his teammates because of his work ethic. He's taken a lot of hard coaching. We've had a lot of very honest conversations. I'll probably say it 100 more times this year, but I'm really proud of that kid. And I think the plays he made down the stretch when we seemed to have nothing going, and you saw the burst, you saw the physicality, you saw somebody who wasn't baiting for fouls, you saw somebody who was really just going to win. And I think his conditioning is something that's helping him do that, but I'm really proud of Keonte.
All right, hopefully you heard that. It was really good. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, plus an Ask LOJ edition of Locked on Jazz. Thanks so much for tuning in. We send you now the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked on NBA. Plus, check out Game Night after every game, every night on Locked on NBA Game Night on Locked on NBA.